So, welcome, Lalitha Ramanathan. Thanks for taking time to read Dangling Gandhi, the title story of this collection. And I'm very grateful to welcome you to this international webinar series. Let's hear what you have to say about this one story.
Thank you, Jayanti. It's great to be here having this conversation. I have your book right with me here. I'm even more thrilled to be reviewing the title story of the book, Dangling Gandhi, because that is such an intriguing title. And I've read your other works as well. So I was wondering, what do you have in store for the reader this time? And you did not disappoint as usual. There's so much to pick up and so much to learn. And I'm really excited to, question you. So you're in the hot seat as well. After I finish my review, I'm going to ask all the questions I'm dying to ask you as well.
Okay. Okay. And yes, please go on.
So what I love about your writing style, and this is something that I have highlighted before as well when I finished reading When Will You Die as well, is that how you use your literary canvas, right? It's that in terms of narration or in terms of narrators or people who are like telling the story, right? You have this way of pushing boundaries. You don't stick to just one person narration, right? You stick to like, okay, sometimes it's a ceiling that's a narrator. So it really brings all the pieces together. And even in this particular story, there's not one narrator. You have different people coming together, and that renders such a layered, such a unique, such a nuanced feel to the story, right? And it makes you start thinking not in one direction, but in 4 different directions, right? This story, again, starts in a taxi in Singapore. Like there are 3 generations who are getting into this taxi, Indians, 3 generations, Singaporean Indians. So you have a grandfather, you have a father, and you have a son. And you have their Singaporean Chinese driver. And they engage in a conversation, but it's just not a one-dimensional linear conversation. It's a conversation that makes everybody think, even the reader. It makes us introspect and it reminds us of our roots, our origins, and what freedom means. And that is the gist of the story. The trigger point of this conversation is basically the dangling Gandhi, which is a figurine, a bust figurine that is, dangling above the dashboard of the car. And that is the catalyst for this conversation. The minute the father sees the Gandhi, he asks the driver, do you know who this is? Do you know about India's freedom struggle? And the grandfather in the back seat starts thinking, it's like, okay, I'm walking down memory lane. So you're taking the reader on this wondrous journey of, back into the days of India's independence and how far India has come as a nation and how has Singapore evolved too. And what does it mean for people who migrate between countries and the emotions and the feeling of home and the feeling of roots and wings, all that comes alive through your writing. Yeah. So if we start with the different characters, the characters itself, I found them extremely intriguing because each one is so different, right? And you can find people who would actually fit in that characterization perfectly to a T. Let's talk about the youngest, Kumar. He's a second generation Singaporean, right? He doesn't identify himself as an Indian, or he doesn't remember his roots at all. He is fluent in Mandarin. He is happy to be known as a local. And he's from this generation that tends to be very woke, right? Like he reminds me of my daughter. If you ask me.
He is my second son, almost.
He doesn't really like anybody talking. You know how this generation is, right? They're like very private. They tend to be like, you can't ask people whether they have kids. They can choose not to have kids. You can't ask people. You can't talk to a taxi driver. You cannot. So all those rules. And he keeps texting his father on the phone saying, don't talk, Appa, don't talk. And it was so funny because I was thinking, if I did that too, like if my daughter were to do it, I'd be like, Kanna, can you read this WhatsApp loud? I can't see what's going on.
Not my first thing to read. Yeah.
It's like the real generation gap and that banter that's kind of endearing. It's like bittersweet, right? They know that they don't have a high opinion of you, but it's like that bond, it's like bittersweet, right? So that's Kumar, where he still, like, he doesn't know how hard won this freedom is, right? And then you have Ram. So Ram is something like the sandwich generation. He has the best of both worlds. He knows the modernity of his son, and he also understands the struggles and tribulations of his father. So therefore, he has got this sense of pride. So when the driver tells him, "Oh, but you don't look like a Singaporean at all. You don't have the accent." Pride in that fact. He says, "Yes, I migrated 20 years ago, but guess what? I still, I'm stuck to my roots. I love my origin." And he's proud about it too. And he keeps engaging, and he's from that generation where, you go ahead, you talk to your neighbor, everything that's happening in their life, and, keep on asking all these personal pointed questions like, "Oh, you're divorced. Oh, you got 3 children. Wow." And all that. How did you go to jail? Everything. He's got no filter. Like what the generation would say, no, absolutely no filter. Right? So, and then the most interesting character for me was the grandfather. He isn't really what you call an active participant in this conversation, but he's like absorbing all this information and it is taking him on a journey of his own. This journey is, no spoilers, but this journey is extremely important because this kind of leads to a full circle moment for him.
Yes.
And when he talks about freedom, he's like, transported back. He's got all these memories that are coming. And one of the, I think, clever hints that you dropped is that he was named after Gandhiji, but he may not agree with his ideas. But you don't mention his name anywhere. But in one of the flashbacks, you talk about a Mohan and you talk about Lakshmi.
Yes, that's
so
right.
I figured out that the grandfather's name was Mohan, and I think that was a very clever tool where you got the reader to do the work and figure out. And there's a sense of satisfaction when you see the red herring and you're like, okay, this is the grandfather.
I know.
So the grandfather is like transported to the moment where, India's freedom celebration. You're talking about August 15, 1947. He's transported to that time, and he's like listening to. He remembers, on the banks of the river Varaha, all the people gathered there, having a conversation, celebrating what the future holds, and that sense of pride. And you have some people commenting that the date is good, date is bad, but overall, the air is celebratory.
Yes.
Right. And he is remembering all of that, and he's saying that, wow, this freedom, this journey, for him, it is this whole journey in front of him. The dangling Gandhi there has, triggered that memory. Yeah. And it's important for him in many ways because now it tells him because what are we talking about? We're talking about freedom, the importance of our origins, where we are from, and where we want to go with all of this, right? Who are we? Where do we come from? What do we hold the most dear? Right? And how do we value this information? Or how do we value this freedom? Because Kumar is not going to understand that. He's lived a very sheltered life. He's not going to understand that. Right? And Derek is very similar to Kumar in that way that, he's a son of immigrants. They came from China. They worked and they raised him here. They tried to give him the best, but yet he didn't figure it out then. He went to business school. He fell into bad company. He went to jail, and now he understands it. At a certain age, now he understands it. I had that freedom. I threw it away. I misused it, and it could have been different. It could have been different. So I think for each of these people, it was like a personal journey of introspection of who am I, right? Who am I? Where am I from? Where do I really belong? So it's a sense of belonging, a sense of freedom, a sense of introspection, right? And what do people really hold dear in terms of values? I think this is so much about the story. And another thing that I'd really like to, highlight is the fact that, you've peppered it with stories from history. Like, I could actually imagine, like, Subhash Chandra Bose, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and the Cathay, or, the immigrants along the Singapore River. Because I think I just mentioned this to you as well, that I got the feeling of walking around the galleries of National Museum with all those black and white photos, Singapore photographs.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of experience. That was the kind of experience that, the reader experienced that, delved into. And a lot of facts and pages from history came alive the story, right? Because look at Kumar, he has a lot of bookish facts. He will tell you who somebody's mother is or the history, but he hasn't seen it happen. The grandfather has. He has seen all of it. And also he has seen the stark reality and the harshness and all the nuggets that you have peppered in. You have said that, okay, well, they were celebrating independence. It was still with, British apportioned rice, right? It was still with the British sanctioned rice. Or the fact that even when men were gathered around the banks of the river Varaha, there were very few women there, right? Yes. And So these are like little nuggets which are slipped in, and I think each one of this is a story in itself. There's so
Yes.
much that is said, and there's so much that is unsaid, right? Which, and I think a story really works if the reader is interested to go and look up more information. Like after reading this, I went and Googled Netaji Kathe.
Oh,
So
okay. Okay. Okay.
I
Uh-huh.
did a fair bit of googling there. Then I was like googling about this river Varaha and Teni district, and just the kind of thing that gets you really intrigued and and interested in reading.
Yes.
I think overall in this story, the Gandhi is a metaphor. It's a
Yes.
metaphor for freedom, right? Freedom, and what does an individual do with this freedom that defines them? Yeah, and what are the core values that you hold dear? Because you mentioned a very important point here. I feel that it doesn't really matter where you're from or what you do or what was your past, what was your future. The core values are always going to be the same fundamentally. You mentioned, for example, I think Ram mentions that he remembers a quote from Gandhi where he says that nature and greenery are not the wealth of the current generation; they're just a loan from the future generation, and hence we need to conserve them.
Gandhi
This is
said that.
exactly what, yeah,
Gandhi said that. Yes.
Gandhi said that. Gandhi said
And
that,
he
and this
said
is
it 1 century ago, and still it's applicable, I think, even today.
it is. It is.
Humanity is not even realizing it. And we are spoiling
Very
this
sad.
earth. Yeah, so much.
And yeah, we will regret it in the future, of course. But I love what Lee Kuan Yew has done with Singapore, right? The Garden City. We have so much of greenery. We are blessed that way.
Of
We're
course.
absolutely blessed
Even in
that
this
way.
concrete jungle, the reserves they preserve. Oh, right? Nature
Yeah,
reserves.
absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Salutes to
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, that's where I
So
spend much of my time whenever I can get time,
I
free time. Now, actually, do you realize why I had reserved this slot for you, Dangling Gandhi, and not the other stories? I didn't give this slot to anyone else, but I reserved it only for you because I thought you will understand better how the taxis drivers in Singapore are talkative. And we also engage in talking. We do normally.
absolutely.
It's not like any other nations when you go any other city countries when we go where we only talk about the fare and things and maybe a courtesy 1 or 2 lines. But in Singapore, it's very chatty, right? Most of the times, taxi drivers love to talk, and the passengers, if they like to, I talk. So,
I talk to.
so that is very unique to Singapore that you can read. The other thing is the Eco Bridge. Have you seen the BK in near Bukit Panjang BK Eco
Actually, no, I
Bridge?
haven't, but it's on my
You
to-do
should.
list.
You will go once. Bukit Timah Nature Reserves. When maybe we both can go once. That Eco
Sure.
Bridge is whenever I pass in the highway, in a taxi or any time, that Eco Bridge is always um, so catchy for me. People might not even notice that Eco Bridge is very beautiful. They have animal images like this. They have it in I think engraved, not
Yeah.
drawn. Beautiful bridge. I think it's there in the Google. When you Google, you will get it. The
Okay.
Eco Bridge,
Okay.
and it is done for any small. We don't have big animals here, but we have small ones, right? They pass from this side of
Oh,
the
nice.
encashment to that side. It was built for that. And
Okay.
yes, they have timings for visitors to go and enjoy. There is but I've not done it yet. During COVID, I tried, but it was closed for those trekking was closed. So that Eco Bridge, it's very wide, it seems, and it's done mainly for the animals to go from that side to this side.
Okay.
The
I
bridge,
should definitely check it out.
yeah. So yeah, that's one thing. So I don't know if every writer, fiction writer, every author gets one reader like you. I think it that's it. after I read your review and after I heard you talk just now, I felt that, okay, this collection is, it has reached to the point where there is no more needed. The best reward. And that way, it's very emotional, very happy. This book was published in 2019. And I've started this international webinar mainly to reread. Many of them are rereading, like Sri Danya will be rereading that particular story. Otherwise, she came to Madras Literary Society to review the whole book. She was the best speaker. She was one of the best reviewer speakers. So she will be reading The Pavilion, that short story, for this webinar series, rereading it. So I wanted this because short stories are not written, or novels come very often, and non-fiction, personal essays. But short story has a form, it has a shape to it, which is not so much explored. But there is so much to explore. So much can be given in that short form. Only the craft and techniques, when they, writers, of course, for me, because anyone can get that kind of perfection and connections if they are writing for so long. I've been writing for 28 years, obviously I can. But what I mean is, as a form, as a genre, short story is one place where every writer should explore. Once they are able to really do well there, novel will be another, place to promote themselves. That's how I feel. It'll be very good. Because within the frame, how much you're able to say, how interestingly you're able to say, what are the things, how you're weaving, and how you're taking it forward. What are the characters, all that.
How do they come alive, and how do they share the message?
The variation, and which one to be depicted more, which one to be subtle, and all that. You learn so much, and later the novel becomes much more easier, right? I'll take any question you have. You said you had many questions.
Right. Yeah, I do. So I think it's first. I think the first question is again on your narrative, your narrator choice. How do you choose who tells the story? Whether it is the ceiling, whether it's a protagonist, whether it is 4 different people telling their own stories. How do you choose that? Because that's really what makes your story stand out.
Yes.
Who tells their story? Who gets their voice, and why?
Even in the novels, I do that. What I do, basically, I believe in writing where I do as less of telling, because whoever it is, not just me, any writer who tends to tell more will not show more. In the sense, if I'm going to tell my opinions on that character, that dialogue, or that incident, I have my opinions, but I make sure I don't tell my opinion. This is the basic rule I follow. Who's telling to follow that rule? I don't know. That's my style. If I follow that, I get to give a rounded narration. And there are, like you said, there are 3 characters. Who says what? Each character has as a nature by itself, like you said, 3 generations. So each will have their own style of thinking, talking. That is all okay. But through that, I need to send across certain things to my readers, and I will choose this is the best person to say this, and that person will respond to it in this way, because that character is like that. He has to do this, right? So it comes from various people point of view in one short story, gives us that roundedness. And I make my characters think and talk. I don't I have my opinions, I have my, comments, criticism in that, but I put them all aside. I become the character, I make the character walk and talk. And I
Sometimes you
think,
talk as your character, because
huh?
I do that. Sometimes I'm writing and I
Of
become the
course,
character.
of course, Lalita, when I was working on my misplaced pets, it was a big novel, big canvas, and protagonist Purna. The whole year I was thinking and talking like her. When I used to go long walks, I used to argue with her or maybe try to think and talk like her because I'm rewriting some chapters and things. Those who know me in the park, they know that she will be like this. She is nuts. It's okay. But those who say hello and they get to talk with me, they know she is normal. For sometimes she comes like this. And sometimes some people who really know who I am, what I'm doing, they know that she's talking with her
I think for
characters.
us writers, there was another advantage of the masking. Now you could talk and nobody would notice because the mask was covering it.
During pandemic, yes. And yes, but in the park, I used to remove my mask at one point. And you know what? During misplaced pets, we had a young mother with her child. And that child was about 3 years old girl. Her name was something else. I don't remember. But in my novel, there was a same age child, Ananya. When I was talking with that child, I was, Ananya, do you want this? And that child was looking at me. I've told this auntie so many times my name, she doesn't remember it. Something like that, she was looking. But what's happening here is I'm still there. I'm shaping my Ananya, who is similar to this child, similar in age.
Yeah.
And that happened, I thought, I laughed and laughed. I told the mother what was happening, but of course the child is too young. Child, of course, thought, oh, this auntie can't remember my name. Simple thing. And it was very funny looking at her expression. So I think that answers your question, meaning I make my characters think and talk. And like that way, especially in a novel, each part can be from another's perspective. And it has to be. A novel, a fiction is reflecting life. It cannot be singular in the point of view. For any incident, even a traffic accident, for example, has 2 points to it. At least two points of view. And you will get 2 points of view when you talk to both the sides.
Yeah.
And when the police comes, they come up with some thing, and there is yet another third version. Life is about, I think, perceptions, points of view, and therefore a novel has to go simultaneously to more than 2-3 threads, and therefore more than a few points of view. And like you said, the tiled roof and all that, reviewers may be wondering where it is from. It is not from Dangling Gandhi. It's from When Will You Die, that novel. So this that was one way I personified a non-living object. Thereby, it is there as it is, holding secrets, right? So that's how I did it. Just the way in this taxi, the figurine, it's a metaphor. Like you said about the roots and things. Yes, very true. But also, I had in my mind while I wrote the Gandhiism, the ahimsa, or the non-violence, or even other ideologies that he believed and held, are still needed in the world everywhere. And yet they are all dangling this way or that way. Who's taking, who's not taking? Is anyone taking? Is anyone forgetting? It's dangling. His ideologies. That's one metaphor.
Very true.
And this is this and this collection. Originally, I thought of Pankawala as the title of the book, which is the second story, because that's one of my favorites in this. But when I rethought, I felt it might give a message to the readers, like Pankawala. Is it a translated story from Hindi or something? You know, I didn't want that. So I thought, then what is the title of the book? Then I thought, this is a metaphor by itself. It's so wide, not just for that story, ecology, ahimsa, roots, you name it, you have it.
Yeah.
Let me have this as the title of the book, which would be really catchy universally, right? Any Gandhi, everyone knows.
Yeah.
What is Gandhi dangling? So
why is he dangling? Yeah.
So it was fun. Some people felt curious when the title came out. So that's how I changed the title. So it was an experimental fiction, Dangling Gandhi. The title helped me for the collection. And thanks for reading so well, Lalita. If you have any questions, I'm open.
Actually, this question, I did have the question of why did you choose Dangling Gandhi among all the 12 stories, but you've already answered that.
Yes.
I just have one more question if time permits.
Yes, please.
In a short story, do you really think that towards the end there should be a shock value or a twist? Because in the story, I really didn't expect the ending, right? Because the grandfather was just going for a health checkup. So
yes,
the last one is like a punch. Of course, it's kind of rounded off his journey, but it was still a shock. I was like, oh, because I like my stories to be hopeful, right? And this one did have hope, but it was, it was a kind of a shock to me in the end. So
for me,
was that a conscious decision? Yeah.
No, for me, normally I leave it open-ended. That's my, I like it that way, especially for a short story. It's a good way to end. But in this story as it is very less. The story in this Dangling Gandhi, the story by itself is very less. It's the weaving of other things, relevant things is more. And for me to, how to end, it took me some time to think how it can end. Okay, this person is suddenly, I mean, the elder man is suddenly thinking about past so much. He's thinking about his wife who's no more for so long. And all that, it is very, very common to people who are in their last moments of life. They will think. Then I thought, okay, he has been thinking so much about all his life. Probably let me end it like this. But I did it in carefully, not to dramatize it. Even again, subtly, I left it there. But it is obvious there. He's very old. It's not wrong that he died there, like in that fashion. Also, right? So another thing, we in fiction, we don't have to have a happy ending. Life is a mixture of both happiness and sadness. When there is birth, there is death. There's nothing to feel so bad about death. Death is as natural as birth. You know, so we don't have to feel talking about death or ending off with a death is to feel bad about. Of course, for the son and the grandson, it will have been a shock and unexpected, because they were having a journey which was so jovial and very light-hearted and things. But such a thing happened. But again, it's an open-ended. They are just outside Mount Elizabeth. So help is going to come immediately. And he's breathed, he went away peacefully, right? He exited peacefully. Let it be so. No one is going to stay permanently on Earth. It's okay. It's okay to talk death. And it is okay to talk death, and it's not negative, in my opinion. We don't
Yeah.
have to say it has to be happy ending. We don't have to say a death ending with a death is something negative. Not at all.
Yeah.
And in fact, if someone is exiting Earth in such a peaceful way, that is
Absolutely. And he's lived a
that
life,
is,
right? He's seen his grandson.
and that
It's a
is
celebration.
the best gift a human being can have. Because these days, bedridden, this, that,
Yeah,
bringing
absolutely.
pain to pain, not just to the patient, all around, the people all around, whoever taking care of. So one can ask for is, the best thing one can ask for is the smooth
Yeah.
exit. Like my mother also exited in 2022, January. So very smooth exit. And my father suffered for a month or so. Compared to that, my mother's was a smooth exit, very unexpected, smooth, very smooth. And I think, therefore, if we are so happy to talk about a plant blooming, flowers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
not talk also about the autumn leaves, the withering leaves,
Absolutely.
Because that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
both are natural, right, Lalita? So that's of course, I don't like to have it that this kind of an ending. I always like open-ended.
Yeah. I like happy endings.
Oh, you like happy ending. You're still a child at heart, I think. I am. Many people say even for my age, I'm such a child at heart. But on the other hand, the wisdom is also there.
But the
So
magic is with the child.
sorry.
The magic is with the child. The wisdom may be with the adult, but the magic lies with the child.
Which is true. And the way you read it, the other text review I read, and today also, after talking to you, I feel so happy. Thanks for that happiness, and thanks for your time and effort. I'm so happy I reserved this short story for you, because other short stories, yes, there are short stories set in Singapore, but this is so typically Singaporean. Taxi driver chatting. That's why Lalita must take this. I had it. So thank you, Lalita. We'll
Thank
keep
you.
in
Have a
touch.
great
Yes,
All right.
I'll
Thank you.
even if it's not my work and my initiative, any other people who are in need of reading and talking, reviewing, and there are opportunities by other others, I will bring to your notice. You don't have to accept if you're very busy. You can say next time. Okay.
Sure.
But I will bring, because your reading is amazing. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good day.
God bless, and good luck for your new book.
Thank you.
Bye.
We can get started. Yeah.
Welcome to the international webinar series, Ram. Thanks for agreeing to be part of this and reading and reviewing. And it's your time, your platform, and your review today. Let's hear what you have to say about your story, Dangling Gandhi.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to my review of this short story titled Dangling Gandhi. I was extremely intrigued by this title, as I'm sure you all are as well. Dangling Gandhi? What could that possibly mean? I decided to find out by reading the entire story. The character building starts right at the outset, with members from 3 generations of a family boarding a cab. The grandfather, the father, and the son. It is very clear that the grandfather is being taken to a hospital by his son and the grandson. The first impressions are that this story is set in India. Just looking at the names of the characters, Ram, Kumar, and so on. It is then that the visual reset happens, when the physical setting and the cultural references to Singapore kicks in. For example, the name of the cab driver, Derek Tan. The use of the word La, the famous Mount Elizabeth Hospital, the topography, and so on.
Yes.
All the characters in this scene have a meaty role in the story, including the cab driver, Derek Tan. Many times, they are the insignificant and invisible ones for many. The timeline also gets firmed up with the backdrop being the Indian independence from the British rule. Time and place holds great significance in every story as an important reference and anchor point. And this story captures that beautifully. The generation gap is clearly made visible in the choices that the dad and the son make, be it the topic of conversation or the choice of radio FM, and what their focus is on. Despite being away for the best part of 2 decades, the dad is holding on to his Indian roots.
Yes.
And his pride shines through in every statement of his.
Yes.
He is old-fashioned in the sense that he believes in deep conversation with everyone involved.
Yes.
He's built a personal connect with the driver and gets him to open up and share his deepest personal details within a short span of time. The son, on the other hand, relates more to Singapore than India, having spent all of his life here. All through the journey, it is clear that their old man, the grandfather, is drifting away slowly. He's rambling about his wife, he's talking about Varaha, he's getting into his experiences. It is also very apt in the entire story that the name of the grandfather is also Gandhi, and the story is about the dangling Gandhi that is on the dashboard, with the backdrop being the Indian independence. By the end, we see, of course, that India is independent, relieved from the world, and we also get to see other similar nuances as part of this. It's a great story for anybody wanting to read and understand the thoughts, the frame of mind that people were in during the Indian independence, and get to understand how different generations perceived it. Give it a read. Dangling Gandhi is a wonderful story that will make your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you for such a profound reading and taking time to read, taking time to review. And yes, grandfather's name is Mohan. Yes. This title, or even the small figurine in the taxi, it fell as a metaphor in the short story, because this modern day world still requires the ideologies of Mahatma Gandhi, the non-violence, ahimsa. No, the world requires, but is it after it? Is the ideologies of Gandhi still held high? It's dangling. I mean, it's this way or that way. It's there for some people. It's not there. So that kind of a metaphor came in that taxi in front. They have one figurine of Gandhi, and that's how the conversation begins, right? The whole story is, like you said, it's depicting the generational gap, and through the contemporary thread of the story, we are also giving flashbacks of the old man on the day of independence, especially on the day.
Yes, on the day of the independence.
Yes, and he was a small boy. So, and just before a soul departs this world, I believe, I don't know how true it is, I have known that it gets
Flashback.
rewinding of the
Entire
and
lifetime.
when the old man is listening to them talk, for example, Gandhi, he gets Vaishnava Janato. And then when they talk about ecology and the preservation of nature for the future generation, he thinks of Varaha. Varaha Murti, the incarnation of second, no, I don't know if it is second or third. Varaha, he was on earth as a boar to save the earth. So this old man thinks of Varaha or the Varaha River down south in India. So that connect. When they talk, he gets that connect. And that kind of a connect could enable me to bring out certain weaving, right?
Yes.
And of course, later on, in the end, the boy asks, you are talking so much about everyone other than in Singapore. So do you know the name of the wife of Senior Lee?
Yeah.
Neither of them know that.
Yes.
And it's very true, right? We all live in one place. We wouldn't know much about that place. We will know everything about all other places on earth, other people on earth. We don't know about the people in our own life much. So it's very natural. Yeah. So that's how I and I must thank Bharati Murthyappan, one of my good friends in Singapore locally. She was the one who said, because her father's name is Mohan, given to in memory of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi by her grandfather. So she said, my father. So and another thing also she said shared, when her father had come to Singapore, when they were traveling in a taxi, there was one Gandhi thing, and there was a conversation, but it didn't go so deep or vast. But there was a one-liner conversation, something like that. And that's where I got the inspiration to weave such a story. And in this occasion, I must thank her for the metaphor and the inspiration. And yes, this book actually had in my mind a different title, the second story of the collection, which is Pankawala. Pankawala was my one of my favorite stories in the collection, and I thought of giving that as the title of the book. But later on, I thought for a collection, it might sound like it's a translation of some Hindi work or something, it's a Pankawala. How many, other than in the Indian diaspora, how many will know the meaning or so I thought, okay, let me not drop that. And if I were to give a universal title, then I will go for Dangling Gandhi, which might attract the attention and the curiosity of it. That's why I came up with this title. Thanks for reading the title story of the book. And we can talk more if you have any more to ask, please.
No, absolutely. And like you rightly said, one of the things that caught my attention, you spoke about the name of that Singapore's, was it Prime Minister's?
Former Prime Minister, Senior Minister. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So when you spoke about that, the thing that struck me was when we look at the generations gone by, our previous generations, the focus is more on the personal connect. You want to connect with your immediate neighbor, for example, understand their issues, whereas it is much more superficial and just fact driven in a sense for all the later ones, say our generation and the ones coming up. We might want to know just statistics, data points, but it's not the personal stories. And here, if you saw right through that, there was a theme of the father, Ram, trying to understand, how the life of that taxi driver is. He's not shying away from asking him details which are
Yes.
probably very personal,
Yes.
right? Are you married? How
Yeah.
are things going on there? And the other person also, Derek Tan, he's
Yes.
also from a similar generation. So he
Yes.
appreciates those questions rather than shies
Yes.
away. Whereas Kumar is already feeling uncomfortable. Why are you getting into these details? So I think that
That's
shows,
right.
yeah,
That's
the
right.
disconnect. Yeah.
In Singapore, on that context, in Singapore, the taxi drivers are very conversant. They love to talk. That is one background for you. Unlike in India, they only do the work, that's all. Yes, no, that's all. But in Singapore, if we are talking, they will love to talk. And when he started off asking about this figurine, do you know who it is? And it was very natural that they went into conversation. And the good thing is the taxi driver knew that Gandhi was the one who said, we are not leaving behind nature for our future generation, but rather we are using natural resources out of what they are entitled to, right?
Yeah.
So that driver knows a bit of it, all that. So when Kumar mocks at him, so stop talking all these, showing off your history, knowledge and all that, then he moves on to asking about, so how, when the driver says, yes, she must be, I hope she is, and something like that, then it goes on. And like, it is genuine. It's genuine sharing and genuine asking. But this boy, the present generation, he thinks it is being nosy. Don't embarrass him and all that. It's not necessarily so. That is where the humanity comes by. And whereas the other child, younger guy, he thinks he's a tech savvy present generation. He thinks it's nosy. Stop it and all, right? And father and son conversation, many readers felt it is cute. So the past and the present viewing, plus these people conversing in the WhatsApp, three threads together, the short story has been woven. So
And I think the other point that I just wanted to call out, which kind of stood out for me, is even though the taxi driver has gone through so many difficulties, right? He's divorced. He's probably just having a simple meal every day. That's all he can afford now. But he still radiates so much positivity, right? So he's not holding grudges against his ex-wife. He hopes that she is employed. So the goodness in him shines through, no matter what. And I think it relates to the quote also that you called about Gandhi, right? Which spoke about if you can understand the pain of another person. And yes. So I think all of that again tied in very well with the theme.
That's right.
The story.
Yes. When the person reaches 50s, with all ups and downs in life, after going through, he comes to a point, naturally so, nothing really matters in the end. Holding grudges is the stupidest thing to be doing, because so much he has gone through, he will think nothing really matters in the end. So that's when people are able to let go, forgive, not as in really forgive, naturally. These days, even divorcees are continuing to be friends. They remain friends, and those things are very, very positive in the society everywhere, not just in Singapore, everywhere. Singapore is known for the conversations of the drivers. If you ever visit Singapore, you will know. Even in Changi Airport, the minute you land and you board a taxi, they will really start. So you're from India, that's how they will start. Where are you from? So how long have you been in that country? That's how they will start. Is this the first time you're coming to Singapore? So they will start themselves in a very friendly way. So it's very typical of Singapore. Everyone knows it. So some people, they avoid. they will say yes. Yeah. People avoid. They start a conversation, but people will, and that's when they will sense it, they will not continue. But when they do, then for myself, I enjoy talking. I talk. Whenever I come back from India after the holiday, he will start off. So is this the first time? No, I'm here for 34 years. Then he will say, oh, okay, you're a local. So they know. And so I don't mind talking. So I talk. I continue with asking, so how long have you been driving? So that's the question we normally ask. How long? Before that, what were you doing? And all that. We talk so much. So that's Singapore culture. Yes, and you picked La. Yes, that is also synonymous to Singapore.
Singapore, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was able to recognize that because I had a colleague who was from Malaysia.
I see.
Yeah, and who used to use that word, and
Come on,
kind of,
La.
yeah, exactly. So, and I think the Indianness in this as well. I mean, probably it is universal. You could see the pride that the dad has. No matter
Yes, exactly.
how the son is responding to every one of his statements. He's irritated. He's he's embarrassed and so on.
Yes,
But the dad is filled with pride all along. He's like, do you know he can speak Mandarin?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's very relatable as an Indian parent. That no matter what, we take a lot of pride. Yeah.
Yes.
Kids' achievements.
And also the generation. The same young guy, when he reaches 50 plus, he will emulate his father probably. Now he's like that because
now he's like
yes. And as for his father, yes, he's so proud of, and he's so happy to share, happy to talk, and and at the same time, he's accommodative of his son's feelings. He tries to stop his conversation, but again, it happens, right? Well, thanks for the conversation was very nice also today. The review is one of its kind. I think very well read. Thank you so much, Ram, for your time. And
thank you.
Do we have any more to talk about Dangling Gandhi?
Absolutely not. I just recommend everybody to give it a read. It was very nice. Thank you for sharing this story with me. Yeah.
Yes, of course. And appreciate your time and effort. And you are in our community now. I believe in building literary communities. I've been doing that and this is one more initiative, another community forming. So in future, whenever there are some opportunities, I will just text you or something, and you can think about. I mean, it's not a must, but if you're free, right, and interested, why not? So
happy to participate.
Yes, read and write and participate. And thanks to Surabhi for recommending you to this international webinar. Thank you, Ram.
Thank you very much, Shanti.
Yes, have a good day. Bye.
Have a good day.